everyone, Egman here with another video, and today we're going to talk about the top 16 list from the CoreTCG Webcam Regional that happened this past weekend. 256 people played, and it's pretty much the first of the Webcam Regionals for the second wave of the 2021 season, and then also the first big tournament that I know of, at least, that has set 13 legal. So really cool tournament. And before we go, one, thank you so much to CoreTCG for giving me these lists so we can talk about them. Really appreciate that. And two, I have some allergies going on today, so sorry I'm a little nasally, a little stuffed up, but hopefully you can get through it. It's not too annoying for you guys to hear me talk. But going through it, we have 11 different leaders for this top 16, which is really cool to see. We can see that even just from the pie chart that we have pretty much every color has representation. I'd say yellow and green had the smallest, with just one pure yellow and one and two green, but every color pretty much got a list in there. Black had Dark Broly and Vegeks, blue had Baby, Boujack, and Android 18. Red had King Piccolo and King Vegeta. And then there's also Invoker and Cell, both those multicolor ones as well. And we just go from there. So yeah, just a really cool diversity there as well. The top four, Moises Yannick was able to get it with Cell at top, and then also there were two babies in the top four, and also Danny Wynn with the Frieza Mecha Frieza leader as well. Only yellow in the top 16 he was able to get fourth. It was really cool. So, and then yeah, Armando was able to get top or second with Baby, and Mark was able to get third with Baby as well. So just a real cool breakdown. Obviously, not a lot of new leaders from this set. I'd say that what we've got one Bojack and we've got one of the King Vegeta. Everything else is kind of old, but some of this stuff got like some new support from the Battle Evolution set that released a couple weeks ago. And because of that, people are finally figuring out what cards work for it. And you can see those cards being integrated here. But and this also just a lot of these known decks and everything else are still doing super well, even without old support. So it's really just a big smorgasbord of decks and everything. So we're going to look at 11 decks real quick as well. We're just going to go the top placing of each leader. We're just going to talk over the deck, talk my opinions on them, some of the combos for it, and go from there. Obviously, if any of these people have their own deck video, please watch that. I'll try to put them in this document as well. Also, before we start, this document is in the description as well. So if you guys want any of these lists, they'll just be there, easy for you to click and just look at in case you don't want to hear my stuffy nose talk through all this. But let's just get started with the first list. We've got once again first place, Moises with Cell Xeno, or not Cell Xeno, well, it's Cell Frieza Xeno, Cell Surge. If you guys know me, you know I really love this leader. I've been a big component of it for pretty much forever. It's been a really strong leader for a long time, in my opinion. It's really divisive, though. People either don't think it's consistent enough, or just don't get that, like, oh, the front side doesn't draw cards, so they don't really understand how you gain card advantage and everything. But people who know that this is a fantastic leader, and there's just so much support it got. Not necessarily from set 13, but we did get two new cards with Android 13, The Mission Begins, and Rosie, Blast Manipulator. Both these cards are really fantastic for what they're doing. And honestly, this is just kind of more of a hand control, kind of aggro mid-range deck, where you're just trying to get a lot of value from your opponent by being able to make them discard cards. And then also the Awakened Cell side just has like a bunch of possibilities of either stalling your opponent out by making everything they play go tapped, or being able to just make your opponent lose a card in hand and also lose a card on their field. Dark Broly pretty much does the same thing with its +2, and then really helps out with the surprise stack. Frieza into Frieza Dark Infestation is just very aggressive there. And then there's just so much flexibility with this, and being able to just look at the top 5 of your deck to look for any cards you need for the right situation, and also putting cards into your drop area for free as well is just fantastic. The deck just works super well, can be really consistent, and I think it's a very strong deck played by a very strong player as well. So any other card that we had to talk about? Secret Rare's Hero's Lineage. Everyone's kind of talking about this, but this can just win you the game on the spot sometimes. So it's for a deck like this, I can see why you'd want to run it. And then also, I saw the Big and More in this as well. It's activated if your leader card's green, your opponent can attack with battle cards at any cost of 5 or more till the start of your next main phase. I would say that Dark Broly is probably one of the harder matchups for this, so having Big and More in your deck to be able to counter that. I know this is a best of one format, if I didn't say this already, so I think this is a really important card for that reason. and it can really help out that kind of harder matchup. Otherwise, like, the thing with like this deck especially is that even though it's like a green extra card, it's really easy to have this just as a charge material, or you can put it underneath your, like for Awaken you can put it under your cell as well, and everything else like that. But strong deck, really like it, looks super good, and not I people were like asking online why is Cell still topping, and there's no question in my mind, it's still strong. It has a really consistent archetype, and it can be piloted really well to fit the situation that it needs. Next up, we've got Armando's Blue Baby. Blue Baby kind of got the biggest tool it got was this Majin Buu Unison. This card's just nasty in blue. When I first saw it, I didn't think it was too super good, but then I played against him, like, oh man, this is really tough. So it's a 20k double straight blocker, has the +0 effect of draw 1 at the start of your opponent's next main phase, switch the card to active mode, and if your leader card is blue, switch up to one of your mono blue energy to active mode. So it's just like does everything, right? It's a double strike blocker, so it has a 20k, so it's a lot of pressure. It is a 20k, so it's going to be hard to get rid of the unison markers without having to invest a lot of effort into it. Being able to untap 1 is fantastic, and like if you think about like previously what people would do, and they still run it, but like a Booney was like the best 4-drop that blue had for a long time, and the reason is that because you could play it, and then you can use this activate main, and you could sometimes untap a blue energy, right? And of course you get all the tokens and everything up too, but the main thing was being able to get that untap. So play something strong for 4, but still being able to have the energy open. And the Majin Buu pretty much does the exact same thing, but it's also unison, which means it's more flexible. It has more synergy with new cards, and it also has this -1 auto. When your opponent attacks with a battle card, you may choose one of their battle cards and place it at the bottom of its owner's deck. So that's just being able to pop anything. Sure, your opponent gets to decide when this procs, because they can swing into they get to decide when they swing, right? But it can just be really strong and very good removal as well, and just be hard to like on a deck that just kind of already dissuades you from attacking in the first place. This just puts more pressure to say you shouldn't swing anymore, and it gets really successful for doing that. Everything else I'd say is moderately pretty standard for this archetype. 4 revenge big bang attack, being able to I'd say like having the Zeno Edge of Space. I think like usually people use Vegeta Disciplined Warrior, so to see the split as a 3-1 is interesting to me. Son Gohan, Baby's Minion is a big choice. And honestly just a bunch of one-ofs in this deck too, which is interesting to see. Obviously the win condition is kind of Android 17 turning the tides. So crit deflect, when you play this card, choose all cards in your hand in your opponent's hand and all battle cards in your opponent's drop area and shuffle them into their owner's deck, and then you just have this 30k deflect critical that you can start hitting your opponent with and winning the game too. So that's a potential way to win. You also have the Baby Golden Avenger itself. Like, this is just a really good counter to just make sure you get the game as well. And from there, I don't know. I think this deck is pretty self-explanatory at this point. Buu really gave it a power burst that it needed in a lot of ways, and it's just, once again, it's you have to be a very good pilot. There's a lot of interaction, a lot of individual plays, a lot of one-ofs in this deck too. So you kind of have to fine-tune it to what you like to do and what you're afraid of, and I think that's done in this list right here. Next up, we're going to look at Danny Wynn's Mecha Frieza. I've been really enjoying Mecha Frieza these past couple months, and in the last tournament that I played in, I did pretty much like before set 13. I played Mecha Frieza, and I really do like the Aegis play with this Boujack. I think it makes sense for how it works and being able to gain value and untap for this leader. I'd say the thing that he took the extra step is that he decided to essentially play a blue-yellow version with it, so expecting to charge a blue-yellow, and then also not having any unisons, I think is a bold choice, but it looks like it was definitely the correct choice for what's going on. Being able to have Sensu Beans is really good for this deck, in which you have to have the blue-yellow version in your energy to be able to use Sensu Beans, because this Mecha Frieza, compared to the old one, it only untaps, it only uses yellow extra cards for free and not the other ones. Obviously uses the Universe 9 Assemble, which also has the Saurian Hop that came from the Battle Evolution booster, which really helps it as well. Also runs Final Spirit Cannon, so activate main, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, switch to rest mode, or choose one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode with any cost of 4 or less and KO it. This can be kind of nice for what it does. It's obviously a little expensive for what it does in the if you have to pay energy for it, but if you just pay a life for it, this can be helpful for finding what you need to do. Unfortunately, it doesn't get around barrier, which kind of sucks, but that's what it is. Also running 4 of the Power of the Super Saiyan. This card's nuts, and probably one of the best cards for. It's a really good yellow staple that just came out. A counterattack to negate the attack. If you have 1 or more mono yellow energy in active mode, you can activate this card's active battle skill from your hand without paying its energy cost, and then activate battle. If your leader card is mono yellow, draw 1 card, then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards or unison cards, which are rest mode, and you can activate battle skills on this copy on copies of this card for the turn. So I think this is just very good. You can use this card for free to draw 1 card, and then you also essentially rest 2 things just because you're able to use your Mecha Frieza. It's also active battle on either player's turn. You don't have to spend the energy. You just have to have the energy open, which is really interesting. They haven't really done that before, but being able to play 1 to essentially do your leader ability for free and get free cycle, I think is amazing and really helps the leader out as well. Other than that, I'd say pretty standard. I'm curious why only one of the Mecha Frieza 2020 champion or 2021 champion pack. I feel like this card has to have like a 2 or 3 copy. It does so much and can just prevent your opponent from attacking for the turn. It's really saved my butt a lot of times, and I think it's worth. I mean, it's a 5k combo, which this deck can desperately need at times. So I really like it. And it's also interesting not to see the 2-drop Universe Stein card as well, whose name is escaping me at the moment. That when your opponent swings, they have to rest energy. I'm surprised I'm not seeing that in here either. But it is a bit of a tight list because you have to run all this blue yellow stuff for Aegis as well. But I like this list. I think Mecha Frieza is good. I think Mecha Frieza is a very customizable deck, so you can do whatever you want with it, and you just have to build into it. And I really do like this build for it. Next up, we've got King Cold. This is Butter's version of it. I've played Butters on Untap with maybe not this version, but at least a version that's really similar to this. And he makes King Cold look very, very, very good. And I've played with King Cold before, and it was probably my favorite new archetype from set 13 that I played with. But he kind of took it to another level from what I've been seeing, and it looks very good. Some key cards that I've seen that. Obviously this deck kind of builds itself for like the first 40 cards or so. Obviously you have to run the field cards, and honestly the field cards are your own ratios. I think that's kind of what you have to decide, like what are the ratios I want to do for my extra cards, and go from there. Obviously there's no Roshi anymore, so you can't get your extra cards back, but I think you're fine without that. And it's kind of going from there. I saw that he ran one of these Chilled the Assailant. So this is just deflect. When this card's played, play up to 2 chilled army tokens with 10k power. Or for 2 green, discard this card from your hand. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost less than or equal to the number of cards in their hand, ignoring barrier, and KO it, which is a really unique condition, if you ask me. Are also active main once per turn. Choose up to 2 of your chilled army tokens, and they get plus 5k power for the turn. So all of this is weird. I think this is a good card. I think it's more of just for the active main. I'm not sure why he ran this card. He probably would be able to tell me better. But I think this is an interesting choice there. I really like this Android 18 Never Ending Energy. I think this is the wrong. This is the wrong one. This is the wrong Android 18. The Android 18 is the Steadfast Technique. I'll fix that right there. Boom, bam. Yeah, so it's the Android 18. So choose 1 extra card in your hand and place it in your drop area. When you combo this card, it gets plus 6k combo power for duration of the turn. So that can be really helpful, just because once again you have so many extra cards that you want to be able to discard them. Defending Father Paragus also as your super combo helps you do the same thing as well. Just make sure you get rid of these extra cards and go from there. But I think this deck's really strong. Also running the Majin Buu incarnation of Demonic Evil is very explosive for this deck. Just being able to have a counter, even if it costs 3, can just help you win the game on the spot, and you get to play a 40k double strike on top of that. So I think that helps, especially since we have both these cards that this Golden Frieza, Pinnacle of the Clan, and also the Frieza Revived and Revealed. Both these pretty much have dual attack. This has dual attack outright, and this essentially has dual attack. So being able to have all this pressure with these guys can make this deck more aggressive than it immediately. This on the surface, this deck looks more like a mid-range control deck, but it's definitely more of a mid-range. It can be really aggressive if you let it be, which is cool to see. But that's the list. Congrats to Devin getting 5th on there. And let's go to 7th place. We got William Lawson with King Piccolo, Demonic Rejuvenation. We've seen King Piccolo pretty much since January. People thought that this deck was a little bit undertuned, and then it's was a little bit overtuned in my opinion. And I think it's still a great deck for this format. Obviously, this is a pretty standard list in the sense of most, like over half the deck are just cards that you have to run because they're staples. But there are some unique choices in my mind as well. Omen of the Awakening, I think people are kind of hit or miss on this card, but if your other card's red and you choose one card in your life and place in your drop area, the battle card being played has 20k power or less is placed in Arrow's drop area instead of being played. If you have a red unison card with specified cost of 2 or in play, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. So this can be really good if your opponent's playing like a Topo or like a Blue Trunks or anything else that has like a really good auto to stop your stuff from happening. You can just do this. And like there's so many cards with 20k, like the analog is like 4 or less cost, but 20k power is so good, and it stops pretty much all counterplay things as well. So this is essentially a counterplay in a lot of ways and can be helpful with you there, especially on like turn 3, because Piccolo doesn't need a lot of its energy. Like the first 2 turns it's a little expensive, but after that you can pretty much have the extra energy open. I also saw the Vegeta Unison of Might was a bit of an interesting choice for me. It's a 4-drop Unison, but +1 you can draw 1 card, then choose 1 mono red bio card with any cost 2 or less in your hand and play it, which I guess doesn't really apply. I mean, you can get out more of the Piano or King Piccolos if you want. There's also -2 until the end of your opponent's next turn. If your opponent would play a battle card using a skill, is placed in his drop area instead. So essentially like another copy of Omen of Awakening. And then also the -5 if your opponent doesn't have a battle card in play, deal 1 damage to your opponent. So I'm not really sure why this card's in here. Obviously you can use, like, if you have already Piccolo Jr. out, you can use the -2 effect to wipe the board, and then use this for, pay this for 5. But I don't know if you're getting to 5 for this. I'd be curious to know why this Unison was in here and what the reasoning for it. It seemed unique, and there's probably some reason it was put there, but I just don't know what it is, honestly. But the rest of the list I think looks pretty standard, and I think King Piccolo is probably not going anywhere for a little bit in this format as well. Next up we have Vegeks, which if we want to talk about a list that's not going anywhere, Vegeks has been around for over a year now and is still going super duper strong, even with like 3 sets of nerfs, or a couple sets, I'm not sure if it's 3, but a couple sets of nerfs with just cards that run its engine, but it's still kicking. I'd say like the new cards, obviously, is the SS3 Gogeta thwarting the Dark Emperor, which is a costly card, a new promo, but unique double strike. You can either overwhelm it for 6 or Union Fusion for 6, and then you can also choose battle cards in your warp when choosing cards to use with this card's union skill from your hand. If you do the chosen cards from your warp and drop area, so just being able to use the Goku here and then also your super combo to be able to get this out for 1 is great. And then also auto when this card attacks, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, send it to the owner's warp. In all, this is pretty much a replacement, a more costly replacement for the Deborah Overwhelm, Dark Overwhelm, in my opinion. It's pretty much the same thing. You can even either overwhelm it for 6, or you can just Union Fusion, which should be pretty easy on turn 2 or 3. Just keeps sticking on the board and gain advantage, and it's just a lot cheaper. And 1 energy instead of 2 can be really helpful, and go from there. So I think he's a cool pick for the list and really helps out. Obviously the Son Goku True Fighting Spirit is always good, because we do have a Black Saiyan leader, so you make sure your opponent drop cards in their hand, and everything else is just, I'd say it's standard for the list. So we've seen this list for a while, this archetype for a while. I think it's still good, especially in the best of 1 format, and that's all I gotta say. So congrats to Brandon for getting top 8 with it. Moving on to 10th place, we got Anthony Figueroa with Boujack, the new blue archetype. I will earnestly say I am not an expert on this list, and I will not probably offer any insights besides here's the list for you guys to see and play the archetype. But some things to note real quick. Obviously Majin Buu and the Galactic Buster are 2 very important cards for this archetype, and that are the new super rares. I think other than that, it's a pretty cheap archetype. From there, the Bojack super rare is not super expensive either. We do have the new promo though. Permanent when this card is in rest mode, your opponent's battle cards with any cost greater than or equal to their current energy can't attack leader cards. Also auto for 1 if your leader cards of Bojack Brigade has Agent of Destruction in its card name. At the end of the battle in which this card is used in a combo from your hand or energy, you may play this card in your drop area from your drop area in rest mode. So that can be kind of like it can be nice to play this in rest mode, and then like kind of it has blocker essentially for cards that have like greater energy, so they'd have to like pop this guy first. And then also when this card's KO'd, draw one. So it's just like a kind of nice flexible card for the archetype, and kind of is a floodgate a little bit. But it's just an interesting card from there. Everything else pretty common from there. We also do see this energetic frenzy Kefla as well. Only one copy of this card can be played in your battle area. Reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1 for each of your blue battle cards, which this deck plays a lot of blue battle cards, and a lot of them are played for free. So active main, draw 2, then at the start of your opponent's next main phase, choose up to 2 of your blue energy, switch to active mode. So being able to draw 2 and switch them to active mode is amazing, especially since this is active main. So if it lives, you get to do it again next turn and can really gain a lot of advantage for it. So I think this is a cool tech choice for the deck. I think it helps out. Just gets it works because you have a lot of battle cards out ideally, and then also you get that extra card draw, and you also of course you play this for 3, and then if you untap 2, you essentially played it for 1, but then if it survives the next turn, you get 2 more energy every turn to make plays, and I think that's very important for the deck. So there we go for 10th, and then moving on to 11th place, we've got Carlos with Dark Broly. I don't have much to say about this list either. Obviously, it's very strong. It's been strong for a long time, and I think that Dark Broly is going to be viable for a while still. Nothing too new from the set. I will say that using Heroine's Lineage is a good card. Being able to use Petrification. Also, the Super Kamehameha was an interesting choice in my mind as well. And also just Mirror Creator Absorbed. Maybe this is just me, I haven't seen this card as often lately, but it is here. And, obviously there's the 4 Hidden Power E Supreme Kai as well, which obviously these all work together. But I don't have much to say. I'm grasping at straws, honestly, but it's a good deck. And, obviously you have to play it, and you have to know what you're doing. So congrats to Carlos for getting top 16 with it. Next up, we've got David Sublet with Invoker, and that's almost the entire section and everything I have prepared to say. David Sublet is good at playing Invoker. Invoker's still a good deck. And if I'm allowed to get on my milk crate for a second, if people think that are asking why is Cell Surge still topping, I think the question should also be equally on why is Invoker still in topping. It's just they're the same power level in my mind. They're both exactly the same age, and they're both older than a year in the meta, and they're still popping up everywhere. And they're both surge leaders, obviously too. But I think this deck is still good, and it's it's very particular. And honestly, you have to have the right ratios, and you have to be the good player for it, right? And I think David did both. He had good ratios, and for what the meta is, and he's just really good at what he's doing. And honestly, for a meta right now where everyone's just trying their new archetype and everything, having this a strong, consistent archetype like this can really carry you through, I think, as well. So congrats to David for playing Invoker super well for a long time, and being able to continue to top with it. Next up, we've got King Vegeta, which I know slightly better than Boujack as a new archetype. So once again, we only had 2 new leaders top. We had the Boujack and this King Vegeta. But I think this is an interesting list. Honestly, it's kind of like King Piccolo in a way. It's just kind of like a red aggro that kind of spams guys. But you do get a little bit more interaction and annoyance with these guys as well. It's a really interesting deck where you just play these 1-drops to your opponent's side of the board. They're kind of hard to get rid of, or they have to invest energy to get rid of them. And if they keep them around, then you get bonuses by being able to go into your other dudes and everything like that, and go from there. So the Super Saiyan God Vegeta, you need critical when this card's played. Look at the top 5 cards from your top of your deck. Up to 1 Red Saiyan, any cost 5 or less, are up to 1 unison card specified cost of 1 among them to your hand that shuffle your deck. And the active main for 1 red, you may choose one of your opponent's red Raditz or Vegeta BR cards with the original cost of 5k or 500, and place it at the bottom of another deck if you play this card from your hand. And so it's a unique critical there. And then you can go into this guy, which is EX Evolve for 3, deflect double strike, draw 1 card when you play it as well. And then also, if this card is in rest mode, whenever your opponent's battle cards attack, or If one of your opponent's battle cards is played or attacks, you may choose that card and it gets minus 10k power for the turn, and when this card is removed from your battle area by opponent's skill, place one card from your opponent's life into their drop area. So like this can just be like a really obnoxious card in what it does. And there's like, a lot of cards that make your opponent take life damage, and just this is just kind of like an annoying deck essentially, being able to do some unconventional stuff, some burn damage, some playing cards on your opponent's side and everything else like that. I'd say like the unique choice for me is that there's also the Piccolo Jr. as the choice of the Unison. Obviously there's the new 1-drop red that I've seen. I've seen like some Piccolo 1-drop red Unisons as well for this deck, and so having this Piccolo Jr. one I think is unique, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's wrong in any regard. It can really help out. And the only other thing I saw is that there's none of the Raditz of the Raditz 1-drops. I know that's a promo and expensive, and honestly I don't know enough of this list to know if it's wrong or right to run it, but I just noticed that it is messing, and I don't know if it is because the card can be really expensive and hard to get to right now. But I would assume it's at least a consideration, just because it can be really good at getting either of these guys out, just because it says either you have to have like your specific one out, or you can have the Raditz BR there. But I think that's a consideration, but I don't know how much of a consideration it should be. Last deck, but also for real though, real quick, Daniel, congrats for getting King Vegeta in the top 16. I like your list, and congratulations there. And then lastly, we've got Robert Reedse's Android 18 list. This is kind of, this archetype's been around for a while. It did get, essentially it's a mill deck, believe it or not, with the full power Frieza. The combo is that your Android 18 plays a lot of tokens, and then full power Frieza says when this card attacks, choose all of your opponent's battle cards ignoring barrier, and they get minus 30k power for duration of the turn. When the power card of one of your opponent's battle cards is decreased, your opponent places top 2 cards from the top of the deck into their drop area. And so if you have this Android 18 and you give them, like, if they have like 10 tokens hanging around, and you swing with this, your opponent has to mill 20 cards, and that's like usually game, right? So that's like the entire, it's a combo deck, it's a mill deck. It's a bit cheese as well, but he got it there. Some new support, I'd say, obviously we have the new blue Unison Super Android 13, where you can just play this for free if you're by popping one of your opponent's clone tokens, and then also +2, one of your mono blue leader cards gets plus 5k power for the turn your opponent's clone attackers can't attack during your opponent's next turn, and -4 active battle gets plus 11k in double strike. So that's all kind of good. Being able to, and then also Android 16 for his mother, so this card can't be used in your combo from the battle area, and your opponent can't use clone tokens, and your opponent's clone tokens can't attack. Auto once per turn when a clone token is played by the skill of one of your extra cards, play 2 clone tokens to your opponent's battle area, so it just doubles the amount you get. And activate for 1, just activate, remove one of your opponent's clone tokens from the game, play this card from your hand or drop area. So honestly, your opponent's just going to have a bunch of clone tokens, and then you just get to there. And you get there by using this this Rebirth of Justice. So choose up to 1 blue battle card from your hand, which this is a blue guy, even though it's a blue-red guy, so it works, with any cost of 5 or less, and then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and return it to their owner's hand. So that can be kind of handy if you need that to happen, but honestly, you just play this guy, hope they don't have any counterplays going on, and go from there. And some extra bonuses from this Android 18 is that on the Awakened side, activate and choose 1 clone token in your opponent's battle area, remove it from the game. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, any cost of 1, return it to the owner's hand, and reduce the combo cost of all blue and green cards in your hand and battle area by 1 for duration of the turn. So that just means that your Infernal Villainy Cell becomes just a free super combo, which is really nice. Being able to combo with these Friezas if you need to can be really nice too, just for an extra 10k. You can just surprise your opponent by either doing the full power Frieza, or if that's not viable, you can get some chunky combos by having all these super combos and everything else like that, which can help you get there. But really cool deck. Congrats to him for getting top 16 with it. And I think that's the video for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about this event. Once again, we have a big slew of decks going on, and it's really cool to see that. We'll see probably in the next couple of weeks which decks will continue to do well and which will not. Let me know which is your favorite list from this top 16, which was your favorite. Congrats again to Moises to not only winning, but winning with my favorite leader, Cell Surge. Really, really glad that card's still winning tournaments. And that's going to be it for me. So thank you guys so much. Thanks again to Core for hosting, for running, and providing these deck lists. And I'll catch you all next time.